In a striking reflection of the current geopolitical climate, former President Donald Trump recently labeled Russian President Vladimir Putin as absolutely crazy amidst an intensified barrage of aerial assaults on Ukraine. This remark comes as Russia escalates its military operations, deploying an unprecedented number of drones and missiles against Ukrainian targets, raising concerns about the implications for regional stability and international relations. The recent wave of attacks marks a disturbing trend that has seen Russia launching record numbers of Shahed drones and ballistic missiles since May 23. Over the course of May 26 alone, Russian forces reportedly fired 9 missiles and unleashed 355 drones, with Ukraine claiming to have intercepted nearly all of them. However, skepticism surrounds these claims as reports indicate that Russia has significantly upgraded its drone capabilities, making them faster and more challenging to target. The situation highlights a growing urgency for Ukraine to bolster its air defense systems amid ongoing shortages of critical military supplies from allies. As tensions escalate in Ukraine, Trump's remarks appear to resonate with the growing unease around Putin's aggressive posturing. The former president's comments reflect a broader sentiment among Western leaders who are increasingly alarmed by Russia's actions. Ukraine's struggle against these intensified assaults underscores the ongoing humanitarian crisis and the potential for broader conflict in the region. In domestic politics, Trump has also stirred controversy with proposals that challenge traditional educational funding paradigms. In a recent statement on his social media platform Truth Social, he suggested reallocating $3 billion in grant money from Harvard University to trade schools across the country. This move follows his administration's decision to block Ivy League institutions from enrolling foreign students, a policy shift that reflects his administration's ongoing battle against perceived elitism in education. Trump described this potential funding shift as a great investment for the United States, emphasizing the need for vocational training in a rapidly evolving job market. These developments coincide with a broader narrative surrounding Trump's presidency, particularly regarding allegations of ethical misconduct and the monetization of his political office. A recent analysis from the New York Times reveals that Trump and his family have profited from their time in office more than any previous presidential family. The report detailed lucrative deals involving cryptocurrency, real estate, and even a luxury jet gifted by Qatar, raising serious ethical questions about the intersection of personal enrichment and public service. Experts have noted that the scale of Trump's financial dealings while in office has surpassed previous administrations, with some suggesting that these practices have normalized conduct that would have previously sparked outrage. Michael Johnston, a corruption scholar, remarked, "While we might disagree as to the merits of policy, the president and figures in the executive branch are expected to serve the public good, not themselves." Despite the cloud of controversy surrounding his financial dealings, Trump continues to wield significant influence in American politics, and his followers remain largely undeterred by the ethical implications of his actions. As public sentiment evolves, there are early signs of pushback, particularly concerning the extravagant gifts and financial favors that have become commonplace under his administration. A recent poll indicated that 62% of Americans believe that the gifts, including the Qatar jet, raise ethical concerns about corruption. As both domestic and international events unfold, the intersection between Trump's rhetoric and actions will likely continue to influence the political landscape. The combination of escalating military conflicts abroad and the ongoing scrutiny of Trump's financial practices at home sets the stage for a tumultuous period ahead. Observers will be keenly watching to see how these dynamics play out, particularly as the 2024 presidential election approaches, and whether the public's tolerance for ethical breaches in governance will eventually lead to accountability. On Memorial Day 2025, President Donald Trump unleashed a fiery message aimed at his political opponents, characterizing them as scum who have endeavored to destroy the United States. In a series of social media posts, Trump expressed his grievances about the actions of the radical left, specifically targeting judges and immigration policies that he claims have endangered the nation. His remarks delivered in a trademark all-caps style, underscored his ongoing animosity towards what he sees as systemic failures within the judiciary and federal governance. In his lengthy tirade, Trump accused political adversaries of facilitating the illegal entry of 21 million people into the country, many of whom he labeled as criminals and mentally unstable. Happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country, he proclaimed, adding that the nation was at risk due to judges he referred to as monsters. He called for the U.S. Supreme Court and compassionate judges to intervene against these forces, assuring his supporters that significant progress had been made since he took office just 4 months prior, and declaring, "America will soon be safe and great again." This Memorial Day message is not an isolated incident, but rather a continuation of Trump's aggressive rhetoric that has characterized much of his political career. The president's posts reflect deep frustrations as he grapples with various legal challenges and political opposition that have impeded portions of his agenda. His combative tone, particularly towards the judiciary, has raised concerns about a potential constitutional crisis, with critics warning that such rhetoric undermines the rule of law. In a notable juxtaposition to these incendiary comments, Trump also engaged in traditional Memorial Day observance by participating in a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery later that day, underscoring the complexities of his dual role as a leader and a polarizing political figure. Meanwhile, on the economic front, Trump made headlines again by announcing a delay in imposing a 50% tariff on the European Union. Originally slated for June 1. This decision, following a conversation with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, aims to provide a temporary respite for negotiations that have seen tensions escalate over trade relations. The EU, which is the largest trading partner of the US, had reportedly been preparing retaliatory tariffs amounting to approximately $108 billion in response to the proposed duties. Trump's trade policies have been marked by a series of abrupt shifts and contradictions, often described as flip-flops. From initially threatening significant tariffs on various countries to later suspending or revising these positions, his administration has navigated a tumultuous landscape of international trade that has left many businesses and investors anxious about the future. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent sought to reassure the markets by promising forthcoming trade deals. Yet skepticism remains about the administration's overall strategy. As the nation reflects on its fallen heroes this Memorial Day, the stark contrast between Trump's bellicose political messaging and the somber occasion serves as a reminder of the current political climate. The interplay of Trump's aggressive posturing towards opponents and his fluctuating trade policies suggests a turbulent road ahead, both politically and economically. Looking forward, the upcoming months will be crucial as the administration seeks to balance national security concerns with economic stability. The outcomes of negotiations with the EU and other nations will likely shape the future of U.S. trade relations, while Trump's ongoing legal battles and divisive rhetoric continue to stir the political pot. As observers watch closely, the implications of these developments will resonate far beyond the holiday, impacting both domestic policy and international relations. In recent weeks, the political landscape in the United States has been significantly shaped by the actions and rhetoric of former President Donald Trump. As he embarks on his second term, the intertwining of politics and wealth has become increasingly pronounced, igniting discussions about cronyism and the influence of the ultra-rich in governance. A recent article published in The New Yorker by Evan Osnos captures this phenomenon, highlighting the emergence of an elite members-only club called the executive branch, which epitomizes the new political economy under Trump. The executive branch is a members-only society founded by Trump's inner circle, including his son Don Jr. and Silicon Valley figures like David Sacks. With initiation fees reportedly reaching as high as $500,000. The club aims to create a sanctuary for those aligned with Trump's political vision. Sacks describes it as a space where members can avoid fake news reporters and engage with fellow capitalists without outside interference. This initiative has drawn criticism as a blatant manifestation of the politics of plunder, where access to power is commodified, reminiscent of organized crime rather than traditional political engagement. At a recent launch party for the club, lobbyists mingled with high-ranking officials including members of Trump's cabinet and key regulatory agency leaders. The atmosphere was described as a marked improvement over the more chaotic gatherings at Trump's previous hotel venues. Critics, however, have not shied away from labeling the club a money grab and a grotesque display of wealth and influence. For many, it serves as a troubling reminder of how politics have become intertwined with the interests of the super-rich who increasingly dominate the public discourse. Trump's administration has demonstrated an unprecedented willingness to blur the lines between political power and profit. The former president's inauguration fund set a staggering record, raising over $250 million from corporate donors, and subsequent dealings have raised eyebrows regarding ethical governance. For instance, a recent dinner auction at Mar-a-Lago commanded a $1 million entry fee, further illustrating how financial contributions have become a prerequisite for access to political leaders. The ramifications of this environment extend beyond individual transactions. They signal a shift in the American political landscape towards oligarchy. Scholars have noted that the concentration of wealth among a few individuals today far surpasses that of the Gilded Age, raising alarms about the implications for democracy. Tim Carrig, an archaeologist studying inequality, remarked that the current era may not only witness wealth accumulation but also a fundamental challenge to the ideals of equal representation. As Trump continues to navigate his administration's agenda, he has also been vocal about reshaping U.S. foreign policy. In remarks during a Memorial Day speech, Trump hinted at his intentions to realign American influence globally, particularly regarding relations with China and Russia. His approach, which some analysts characterize as a desire to establish spheres of influence reminiscent of 19th-century imperialism, raises questions about the sustainability of American power and its role in international politics. Moreover, Trump's suggestion to redirect $3 billion in grants from Harvard University to trade schools underscores his populist rhetoric aimed at appealing to working-class Americans. Such statements, however, are often laced with political undertones, as he simultaneously criticizes elite institutions while courting the very wealthy who support his initiatives. As the dynamics of power continue to evolve under Trump, the response from both the political elite and the general public remains to be seen. While Trump's base may applaud his unorthodox approach to governance, critics warn of the dangers of entrenched oligarchy and the erosion of democratic principles. The upcoming months will likely reveal whether the current trajectory will solidify a new norm in American politics or provoke a counter-movement advocating for equitable representation and accountability. In summary, the intersection of wealth and politics during Trump's second term raises fundamental questions about the future of American democracy. As the lines between influence and access blur, citizens and lawmakers alike must grapple with the implications of an increasingly oligarchic system. The unfolding political narrative promises to be both contentious and illuminating. As various factions within society respond to the challenges posed by this evolving political landscape. In a time marked by economic uncertainty and geopolitical tensions, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has expressed optimism about the country's economic trajectory, predicting growth to exceed 3% within a year. Speaking in a recent interview, Bessent emphasized that a combination of tax relief, pro-growth trade policies, and deregulation would catalyze this growth, despite the U.S. experiencing a slight contraction of 0.3% in the first quarter of 2025. Bessent's confident outlook comes on the heels of a challenging economic landscape defined by fluctuating CEO sentiment and trade tensions, particularly with the European Union. "We will be turning the corner toward the end of the year," Bessent stated, underscoring the administration's belief that its economic agenda will soon yield positive results. Furthermore, he noted that the administration's focus on improving the lives of lower and middle-income citizens forms a central part of its policy framework. However, the path to recovery is not without obstacles. Bessent highlighted concerns regarding potential legal challenges and opposition from Democratic lawmakers that could hinder key initiatives, particularly those aimed at accelerating energy projects necessary for powering the burgeoning demand from AI data centers. The administration is keen to expedite permitting processes to capitalize on this growth opportunity. Despite the administration's optimistic forecasts, the recent data from the first quarter raises questions about the robustness of the recovery. The contraction was partly attributed to businesses preemptively stocking up on imports in anticipation of tariffs, a move that has fueled pessimism among corporate leaders. In a survey conducted by Fortune and Deloitte, CEO sentiment plummeted, reflecting growing concerns over the global economic outlook. A significant component of Bessent's growth strategy is the proposed tax cut package, which she referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill. This legislation aims to allow manufacturers to immediately expense equipment purchases, thereby lowering taxable income and stimulating investment. However, the Congressional Budget Office warns that the potential costs associated with these tax cuts could exacerbate the fiscal deficit by $3.8 trillion over the next decade, complicating efforts to rein in budget shortfalls. Trade policy remains a focal point of the administration's economic strategy, particularly in light of President Trump's recent threats of imposing a 50% tariff on all goods imported from the European Union. This bold move has raised alarms among economists who argue that such tariffs could lead to inflationary pressures and stifle growth in both the US and Europe, potentially pushing the latter into recession. Bessent indicated that ongoing trade negotiations could yield substantial agreements in the coming weeks, although skepticism surrounds the administration's ability to deliver on these promises. Amidst these developments, the European Union has voiced its readiness to negotiate, yet concerns linger about the administration's unpredictable approach to trade. Experts caution that pushing for significant concessions from the EU could backfire, noting the complexity of reaching consensus among the bloc's 27 member states. As Bessent remains optimistic about upcoming deals, the reality of international trade dynamics may temper expectations. As the Trump administration navigates the intricate landscape of domestic and international economic policy, its success will hinge on the effective implementation of its agenda amid rising tensions. The coming months will be critical in determining whether the projected economic growth can materialize or if external pressures will impede progress. With the global economy watching closely, the stakes are high for both the U.S. and its trading partners as the ramifications of policy decisions extend far beyond national borders. In a powerful display of remembrance and political rhetoric, President Donald Trump delivered a stirring Memorial Day address at Arlington National Cemetery, invoking the legacy of fallen service members while also hinting at his ongoing political ambitions. On May 26, 2025, surrounded by military officials and Vice President J.D. Vance, Trump paid tribute to those who have sacrificed their lives for the nation, calling them America's best and bravest. "We just revere their incredible legacy," Trump stated, emphasizing the importance of honoring the military's contributions to American freedom and strength. He recounted the stories of notable service members, including Senior Chief Petty Officer Shannon Kent, who lost her life in combat in Syria, and Senior Master Sergeant Elroy Harwath, who died during the Vietnam War. Both stories serve to personalize the sacrifice of those honored that day, evoking a sense of collective pride in mourning. However, Trump's speech took an unexpected turn as he interjected political commentary, referring to a republic that he is fixing after 4 years of tumultuous governance. His remarks suggested a blend of national pride with a call for ongoing political engagement, highlighting the fine line between remembrance and political posturing on such a solemn occasion. Vance echoed this sentiment, stressing the need for caution in military engagements and the importance of remembering the human cost of war. Earlier in the day, Trump made headlines with a controversial social media post labeling former President Joe Biden as scum and criticizing federal judges who have blocked his immigration policies. This stark juxtaposition of a solemn memorial and combative political rhetoric has drawn mixed reactions, with some viewing it as a necessary call to action while others see it as an inappropriate politicization of a day meant for honor and reflection. As the nation reflects on the sacrifices of its servicemen and women, Trump's ambitious plans for national defense continue to dominate the political landscape. His administration is pushing forward with the Golden Dome missile defense project, a proposed $175 billion system designed to protect the US and Canada from a range of missile threats, including hypersonic weapons. This initiative, announced just days prior to Memorial Day, aims to build a multi-layered defense strategy that incorporates space-based interceptors and advanced tracking technologies. Critics of the Golden Dome project have pointed out the significant technical and political challenges it may face. Experts have expressed skepticism about the feasibility of achieving near-total missile defense within the proposed timeline, suggesting that the complexities involved in deploying such a system could result in delays and budget overruns, much like previous military projects. Ian Boyd, an aerospace engineer, emphasized the need for realistic expectations, noting that while the technology exists, the scale and rapid implementation of such a system could prove problematic. As the Trump administration navigates these ambitious defense initiatives, the political ramifications are likely to reverberate through the coming election cycles. With a significant focus on national security and military readiness, coupled with an ongoing critique of the previous administration, Trump's approach is poised to influence both public opinion and legislative priorities as the nation grapples with its defense needs in an increasingly complex global landscape. Moving forward, the intersection of remembrance and political discourse will undoubtedly remain a contentious topic. The future of initiatives like the Golden Dome, alongside the broader implications of Trump's political maneuvers, will shape the national conversation in the months ahead. As the nation honors its heroes, the dialogue surrounding their sacrifices and the political landscape they inhabit continues to evolve, setting the stage for a dynamic and potentially contentious political environment as the next election approaches. In an era marked by shifting geopolitical landscapes, the foreign policy of the Trump administration emerges as both a continuation of historical trends and a stark departure from the moralistic rhetoric typically associated with American diplomacy. During a recent address at the U.S. Naval Academy, Vice President J.D. Vance declared the end of an era defined by nation-building and interventionist strategies, articulating a vision of foreign policy that prioritizes national defense and economic pragmatism over ideological commitments. What we're seeing from President Trump is a generational shift in policy with profound implications for the job that each and every one of you will be asked to do, Vance stated, signaling a pivot towards a more transactional approach in international relations. Historically, U.S. foreign policy has oscillated between isolationism and imperialism, with leaders from Woodrow Wilson to Barack Obama adopting varying strategies that emphasized democracy, human rights, and international alliances. Yet Trump's recent diplomatic overtures in the Middle East have underscored a significant shift towards what political analysts are calling extreme transactionalism. This approach, characterized by economic deals and partnerships with authoritarian regimes, has raised eyebrows among foreign policy experts who argue that it represents a blatant abandonment of the ethical frameworks that have traditionally guided U.S. interactions abroad. During his recent four-day visit to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, Trump secured agreements that promise substantial investments in the U.S. economy, including a staggering $600 billion commitment from Saudi Arabia across various sectors. Such financial engagements, however, come with a cautionary caveat: the actual realization of these investments remains uncertain. This transactional model, as noted by Jeffrey Goldberg, editor of The Atlantic, prioritizes immediate financial gains over long-term stability or adherence to democratic principles. The implications of this shift are profound, particularly as Trump's administration reportedly intertwines personal business interests with national foreign policy. As former State Department analyst Aaron David Miller put it, the concept of an American national interest that transcends party politics and partisanship has gone the way of the dodo. Analysts have pointed out that Trump's dealings with foreign leaders often seem to serve his business ambitions as much as they do U.S. strategic interests. For instance, the president's acceptance of a $400 million luxury plane from Qatar to be used as Air Force One highlights the blurred lines between statecraft and personal gain. Moreover, Trump's reluctance to address human rights violations during his Middle Eastern tour starkly contrasts with the traditional diplomatic approach to authoritarian regimes. His failure to raise concerns regarding the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi among other critical human rights issues suggests a departure from the moral posturing of past administrations. This reluctance has drawn condemnation from various quarters, including Democratic lawmakers who argue that such an approach undermines America's long-standing commitment to global human rights. While some proponents of Trump's foreign policy laud his aversion to military intervention, viewing it as a refreshing candor devoid of the moral pretenses of his predecessors, critics warn that this could lead to a dangerous precedent. Political analysts argue that while presidents have increasingly favored non-interventionist stances, Trump's approach strips away any pretense of ethical considerations, reducing foreign policy to a series of quid pro quo arrangements that neglect broader humanitarian concerns. Amid these developments, the international community is witnessing the emergence of new diplomatic alignments. As Trump engages in economic partnerships with Gulf states, China is simultaneously strengthening its ties with Malaysia and the ASEAN region, seeking to counterbalance U.S. influence amid escalating trade tensions. The upcoming ASEAN GCC summit highlights this pivot, as regional powers seek to collaborate on economic and political fronts in response to perceived U.S. aggression. In conclusion, as the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the implications of Trump's transactional foreign policy approach will likely reverberate for years to come. The abandonment of ethical frameworks in favor of economic pragmatism may yield short-term gains but risks undermining the long-term stability and moral authority that have historically defined U.S. leadership on the global stage. As the world watches, the question remains: will this approach foster genuine partnerships, or will it lead to an era of diplomatic isolation and increased global tensions? The answer may lie in the unfolding dynamics of international relations in the months and years ahead.